they understood and they continue to understand that sweating the small stuff holds you back. And you were born to grow and soar, baby. You were meant to be the biggest, brightest star. Welcome to the Psychology and Manifestation Podcast with your host, Sudane Firestar. Discover how to tap into the power of science and spirituality, the practical and the magical, to create the life of your dreams on your terms. Let's get into it. Welcome to another episode of the Psychology and Manifestation Podcast with your host, Sudane Firestar. I am so happy you're here. So, today I'm going to skip the update. I'm going to skip the chit chat because I'm on a tight deadline here and I want to make sure that I keep to my commitment and promise to give you, lovely soul, an episode of the podcast every single week. So today I'm talking about giving yourself grace. I'm talking about allowing yourself to make mistakes and not to beat yourself up about it. I've had a long journey to get to this point. But I can definitely say for the past few years, I've been over it. Like, I've been more willing to give myself grace and to be okay with being perfectly imperfect and making mistakes. And I've learned how to get through this and to be more comfortable with making mistakes and owning them, and I guess recognizing that I would survive them, especially being a school psychologist. I feel like being a school psychologist has been one of the most epic journeys, and it's been one of the hardest journeys, but I've been a school psychologist for almost 7 years. I'm like in my 7th year of being a school psychologist, and definitely the trials and tribulations, especially working for the particular education systems that I've worked for, have really shaped my character a lot. I think these positions have helped me to be really resilient, strong. I was already an excellent problem solver, but I've had to be an even better problem solver, and I've just had to be a better leader and to be more assertive. So overall, I think that the experiences have really benefited me, and sometimes we may think, oh, if I had an easier position, life would be so much better. But I think that being a school psychologist has really shaped me and give me the characteristics I really need to be an excellent entrepreneur and business owner. Like, I think this experience has helped me to get to my next level. Anyway, I want to share the experience. So if you were listening to the last episode, which was episode number 6 of the podcast, I talked about my experience of writing my dissertation and what helped me get through that process. But I'm going to share with you today like a mistake that I made when I was doing the dissertation that really held me back for a long time, because I continued to beat myself up about it for a few years, and it really was unnecessary. Like, in the end, my dissertation committee didn't even care. Like, it didn't even come up as a point of contention or a problem at all. Anyway, so what happened was that with my dissertation, I had these paper versions of instruments or tools that I was going to convert into online surveys. So I used Qualtrics to create digital or online surveys to collect data for my dissertation. And so I took those paper instruments and I put the questions from the paper forms into digital form. And what happened was that with one of these instruments, I forgot one of the last questions. And there was a lot going on in my life at that time. So there are significant reasons why I could have left that question off, because I was dealing with so many different things. Like, I had 2 internships. The 2 internships combined created one in terms of the time that I needed, the time commitment. But I had internships in 2 different states. So I was going between New York City and New Jersey doing this internship. I had a boyfriend at the time who lived in a different borough from me. So I was living in one borough, going to a second borough for my internship class at my university that was associated with, the internship field experience that I had. And then I was going to a third borough to be with my boyfriend. And it felt like we were living in like we had a long distance relationship. Like, sometimes it could feel like that in New York City, depending how far apart you live from your partner. But there was that. And I think yeah, I mean, there could have been so many other things going on. So, like, I had the relationship, traveling between these different boroughs, the class, the internships. It was mayhem. And I was working on the dissertation research. So, there's no wonder that I, like, slipped up and I made a mistake. But the reason why I was so hard on myself was because I had a particular, like, I guess, identity that was wrapped up in the work and certain aspects of how I completed my work. So my mom would always refer to me as being detail oriented and methodical. So methodical was always a compliment that she would give me. So she didn't mean it in a negative way. She'd be like, "Oh, you're so methodical," and that was supposed to be like one of my assets. And so when I would think of my character and how I would describe myself when I would go into any kind of work experience or interview, I would always promote myself as being this methodical and detail oriented person. And I always got a lot of compliments for that. Obviously, like in some places, people wanted me to be like someone who moved at a faster pace, but I think that people also really appreciated that I was accurate in the work that I would do. So, for me, I felt like I had an identity crisis, and it was like this existential crisis. Like, if I'm not this detail oriented, methodical person, then like, who am I? And like, what am I even good at? Like, I really took it to the extreme. And again, this is years ago, so I don't feel that same way at all anymore. But back then, like, this mattered so much to me, and I had to kind of, really reconsider my self-worth and what it meant to be me, and to come to grips with the idea, or I guess, yeah, the idea that I'm worthy because I am, and I have so much more to offer than being detail oriented. Like, that's not what makes me a special or worthy person. And I just wasted all this time and money because while I was in this process of completing this dissertation for like 4 years, like 4 slow years where I really wasn't producing much or taking much action. Like, I actually had to pay for, I think it was called dissertation mentoring. I think that's specifically what the course was called. And it was considered like a 3 credit course. So I had to pay like, at least a couple thousand or even more than that every term for this course that it wasn't even really producing any work. And so I wish I could remember how much it cost. Actually, I think it was way more than a couple thousand. It might have been closer to like 4K. But don't quote me on that, because I can't even remember at this point, because I'm just letting it go and letting the past be the past. But I wasted a lot of time and money beating myself up over that, among other small things, minor things that really didn't matter in the end. So don't be so hard on yourself. Be kinder to yourself. Give yourself grace, because as a recovering perfectionist, or as a woman in the process of overcoming perfectionism, you are going to be self-critical and hard on yourself and think that you need to be this perfect person and that you can never make a mistake, because your worthiness is tied up in this picture perfect presentation of who you are, but that really is holding you back in so many areas of your life. And it's unnecessary, because other people think highly of you and no one else is expecting you to be perfect. And the only reason why they would expect you to be perfect is because that's the expectation that you have of yourself. And there are so many people in your life that are willing to give you grace, and you can also give yourself grace. You don't need to put that in the hands of other people. You can give yourself space to breathe and to be carefree and to enjoy life. Part of being a human being is making mistakes. Like, no one is perfect. Even if people try to pretend that they're perfect, behind the scenes, they really aren't. And I feel like the perfect example of that is what you see on social media. Sometimes people present these picture perfect lives on social media, and they only share what they want you to see. But behind the scenes, behind all the beautiful pictures and videos and smiles, people have their own struggles. No one has the perfect life. Everyone has their own path, their own journey that they're willing to go on. And actually, the badass female entrepreneurs that I really admire are willing to make mistakes, and they don't care about minor mistakes. They don't let those things hold them back from putting themselves out there, taking risks, and, I guess just providing lots of value, tons of value to the people, their perfect ideal clients that need to hear from them. And scratch that. I don't mean perfect client, but you know what I mean, like soulmate client, My business mentor called them FES clients, but you get the picture. These badass female entrepreneurs are more invested in their message. They're more invested in being magnetic and in people really vibing their FES clients, their soulmate clients, really feeling their energy and being in their energy and learning from them. Like they're more invested in providing high value than on like silly things like, oh, I made a mistake in the caption of my post or my reel, or the on text, the on-screen text on my reel, like there's a typo, oh my goodness, I have to delete it, I have to start over, or oh, this hair is out of place, or oh, I don't have the perfect outfit, or I don't have the perfect lighting, so I can't present this digital course, or oh, the audio isn't perfect, so I can't post this. So all of these women have been willing to be perfectly imperfect in the beginning, and on their journey towards becoming the wealthy women that they are, like the highly successful entrepreneurs that they have been willing to be raw and authentic and to be a little bit messy in the beginning because they knew that they would grow through practice. They knew that by putting themselves out there that they would gain the resources that they needed to live the lives that they wanted to live, right? They knew that they wanted to have these wealthier lives, and they knew that to get to that point, to get to that high level, that they had to be willing to put themselves out there. They had to be willing to take risks. And so, they just don't care about those small things. They don't care about making a mistake on a word or mispronouncing a word on a podcast or having background noise in a podcast, as you probably hear in mine right now. They understood, and they continue to understand, that sweating the small stuff holds you back. And you were born to grow and soar, baby. You were meant to be the biggest, brightest star. You weren't meant to care about words that have been misspelled, or stumbling over a word, or perfect lighting in your videos, if that's the path that you're taking. And I mean, you might be on a completely different path where you want to be in a leadership position in a particular company or organization, or you maybe do really want to start your own business and have your own clients or customers in your own side hustle, whatever it is. But the point is that you need to let yourself shine. You need to let yourself be that bright star, and you need to let yourself be perfectly imperfect, because when you take those risks, that's when you're going to learn something new, and that's when you're going to have the space to grow. Because I really, at this point in my life, don't believe that failure exists. I think that's false. Failure is just learning. Failure is just learning a lesson. Failure, quote unquote failure, that lesson helps you get to your next level. Because each time that you quote unquote fail, you're just learning a new lesson. You're learning something that you really needed to know to be a better version of yourself and to know more about how to be more successful. And if you didn't take that chance, if you didn't quote unquote fail in that particular moment, you wouldn't have learned that lesson. So there's so much value in putting yourself out there and getting that valuable and critical feedback and applying it the next time around. And it doesn't even matter how many times that you fail. I wish I knew the quote by heart. I don't. But there's this Michael Jordan quote where he talks about how he's failed so many times. Like, I failed over and over and over again, and that's why I succeed. So I am not quoting it perfectly at all. But Michael Jordan was willing to be perfectly imperfect. He was willing to do the work. He was willing to practice to get to his next level. He wasn't born a superstar basketball player. He worked for everything that he got and everything that he earned in life. So I know that you're a hard worker, so that's not in question at all. But the point is that when you're doing that hard work, don't play it safe. Don't always hide and play it safe because you want to look like you have your shit together all the time and that you have, all your ducks in a row. It's okay for you to put yourself out there, try something new, take a risk, and learn from that experience. With this podcast, I've been willing to let myself be a beginner. The editing isn't perfect at all right now. It could be pretty choppy. My voice changes in the intonation. Sometimes I stumble over my words and I sometimes will just leave them in there. You know, I might be in there mispronouncing literally or importance or whatever it is. So I'm mispronouncing words. You hear in the background, like I don't have a completely soundproof environment in which I'm doing this. I have my windows closed, but you can hear people racing up and down the street where I live or racing on the highway. But again, going back to these entrepreneurs, these female entrepreneurs that I admire dearly and I love so much, I still like their early content. I take it in, I soak it in, I drink it in. Like I listen to their early podcast episodes, I watch their early videos. I see the poor fuzzy lighting, you know, overhead lighting where they're not perfectly lit, or that they're sitting right in front of a window, right? So the lighting is kind of messed up, or I hear the background noise in their podcast, but I also see where they are now, and I see how they're making millions of dollars. And I know that one day that I'm going to look back, I'm going to listen to these early podcast episodes with the motorcycles and the cars racing in the background of my podcast episodes, but like that one right there. But really be so proud of myself that I didn't give a shit and I was willing to put myself out there and I was willing to give it a try, because there's going to be a day where I am able to edit my episodes perfectly and use the software that makes, you know, my episodes sound like I'm in a perfect soundproof studio, you know, with the perfect equipment. And one day I'm going to be having video episodes of my podcast in gorgeous environments, like a beautiful, beautiful podcast studio. And I'm going to share that here with you. And you're going to get to see that progression, and you're going to be able to see my growth. And that's going to be so meaningful, because to anyone who follows my journey, it's going to just say, you can do it too. So that's the whole point of this episode. Give yourself grace. Right now, I'm letting myself be a beginner and to be a little bit messy and authentic, because I know that it's going to pay off. It is paying off in this very moment. And I encourage you to do the same. What is one thing that you've been holding back on because you feel like it isn't ready, because it isn't perfect in your eyes? And guess what? It might be pretty damn good in someone else's eyes. I challenge you to start before you're ready. What's one step you can take to move things forward with this thing that you've been holding back on? How can you let it and yourself be perfectly imperfect? Be willing to let go a little bit. Be willing to put yourself out there. If it doesn't go exactly as expected, you will learn something new, and you can apply that lesson to your next move, your next step. There is no such thing as failure. It's just a lesson, and you will know better next time, and you will know more about what it takes to be successful the next time around, no matter how many times it takes. That's it. Until next time. If you got any value from this episode, please take a screenshot of the podcast and share it on Instagram. And you can also follow the podcast on Spotify so you're updated every single time a podcast episode is released. Or if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, you can subscribe. You can also rate and review the podcast. Please give it a 5-star review so I can reach more women who need to hear these messages, okay?